Welcome back. It's still the morning brief right here on Channels Television. Let's talk about Nigeria's economy now. And joining us, we have the Director General of the Nigeria Employers Consultative Forum, Mr. Adewale Smart Oyerinde. He joins us virtually. Good morning, sir. Thank you for coming on the program.
Morning. Thank you for having us once again.
And so the report came through. Nigeria's headline inflation has dropped significantly to 16%. Some would say even below the prediction by economists. In May 2023, we were actually at 22%. But of course, the explanation would be that last year, the calculation was based on a different rebasing. But what are your thoughts on this significant and continuous decline in inflation? This is the 7th count now.
Well, certain things we cannot contest, even if we have reservations from different perspectives, and we view those figures, looking at it from different lenses. But what we have seen is, to a large extent, it seems the reforms, it seems they are working. It seems we are making some steady progress. I normally use the analogy that sometimes when you find yourself in a hole, the first thing you stop doing is to stop digging, because the more you dig, the deeper you go into the hole. So it seems from the hole that we found ourselves a few years ago, it seems we have stopped digging ourselves deeper into the hole. And it seems we are now on the path towards getting ourselves to ground zero before we start seeing the kind of sustained growth and development that we all aspire to see. So it seems we are making progress. People have contested the figures, whether it's real, whether it's not real. But the reality is, okay, there seems to be some progress that we are making, and this is a positive that we must all celebrate.
So a direct question to you: do you agree with the numbers? If you do, why? If you don't, why?
Now, I will not look at it as a number. The number can be deceptive, but I rather look at it from the whole context of the whole bucket of the cost of living, as it were. Because inflation, from simple economics, is the persistent increase in cost of living. And if you look at from the analysis we've seen, the cost of food seems to be coming down gradually. There seems to be stability in forex. Analysts have also said the cost of the reducing cost of food might not be directly as a result of things being cheaper, but we know there's been a lot of importation of food, which is also putting the local producers under pressure, because if demand is low and supply is higher than demand, simple economics says that, look, the prices will crash. So some have given those analyses, but what we've seen is that, okay, food prices are progressively coming down. That doesn't excuse the fact or the reality that transportation, cost of energy, housing, and a couple others, and logistics cost is also increasing progressively. So we rather look at it in the bucket and say, yes, we've made progress in some areas. Yes, decreasing inflation, positive in some areas, but we can't lose sight. We can't focus on the figure and lose sight on the real context of the other areas. If prices are coming down, could it be that the household investment is reducing because household income is not progressively increasing? And if household is not buying, and the manufacturers, as of Nigeria, have said there's increase in stock, unsold stock, going to over ₦1 trillion. So we need to put all those analyses together for us to have an holistic view. The figures, good, coming down progressively, but we shouldn't lose sight of those other areas where the costs are not really coming down.
All right. Perhaps there is progress, and this is the contention that we worry about. When I don't think there's any number you put out that will not be contested, but there's some that you put out and it's like, what exactly is going on here in terms of the numbers? But because this is an official number, it becomes quite difficult to debate certain things. But what I'm saying with all of this, I've always maintained my position. As soon as that COI Corp weightage redistribution happen and the movement of the numbers, especially that has to do with food, I knew in my own little understanding of economics that we may have a problem. And then the answers the MBS gave in their presentation was, of course, aligning with global practice, even what they did with the ILO, with the unemployment numbers, that even the government right now, I can't remember the last time the government cited unemployment numbers, because it's not as if it's wrong, but it's a bit detached from reality. If I am the president and you tell me my unemployment is 4.2, 5.3, and when I'm used to the other, what do you call it now, standard of measurement, I will be very happy. It's good for politics. So I'm saying that to say that when the previous base year was used, food inflation, for instance, almost got to 40%. At some point, we're bordering 39 point something, if my data stays correctly. And then the headline inflation was around 34, 33. And then rebasing brought everything down. As we speak now, food inflation is 13%. So what do you make of all this? Every time MBS releases number, it looks like we're more detached, even though these numbers show the consistent decline in prices of goods and services, vis-a-vis what you've mentioned as inventory of manufacturers.
We can't run away from the issue of contentious statistics. With all humility, with due respect to many of us, that are not really comfortable with figures, or that many of us that processes figures differently. Those figures by the MBS probably not make sense. And at the same time, we can't run away from the global practice. We can't select one area of the global practice and say, look, this area of the global agreement, if we use it, yes, we agree with it, because it doesn't favor us, or it projects a figure that is in some people's head, that it has to be negative. If it's not negative, then it is not Nigeria. I think we should progressively move away from that. The reality is the ILO and other global bodies have come up with a parameter for recalculating the global statistics, both at national level, and that we have aligned with. It's just, it is what it is, that we just have to align with it. Now, coming back to the reality on ground, which is the contention that I will align with, many times those figures, if they don't align with local realities, then it becomes you create the potential, or you increase the potential for the contention, because people are not really seeing it. Things are improving in figures, things are improving in the books, but the average Nigerian is not really feeling it, and that is where the contention is, and that is where we have urged the government to they have to do quite a lot. The macroeconomy cannot be improving progressively, and then the micro level, people at the micro level, the employee at the shop floor, they're not feeling these issues. We say unemployment is reducing, and progressively businesses are not expanding, and these businesses are the ones that are supposed to create jobs. So we need to find a way to create that balance, and it is the responsibility of those in authority to help us to create that balance and help the average Nigerian to connect with the figures on ground. Because if we don't connect with those figures on ground, if the reality for me still remains my purchasing power is still relatively low, I can't even purchase the basic things in the market, then that figure will remain contentious in my subconscious. And those are the balances that the people in authority will have to work towards creating.
And speaking of people in authority, and flowing from the strength of Jeffrey's concern about the CPI rebasing, which has led us to where we are, some would argue that even the CBN may not necessarily agree with the position of the MBS, the data provided by the MBS, if not, it will be seen in its decision to reduce interest rate. And the last we saw was by 50 basis points, I think, to 27%. What's your position on this particular argument?
Well, the CBN has said that the progressive reduction in interest rate is also as a result of the reducing inflation, which seems to correlate
but is it corresponding?
The position of the MBS. Whether the CBN agrees, it should be it will be suspect if the CBN, or if all agencies, everybody, all of us, the private sector, the media, if everybody continue to align. This NBS comes up with a figure, we align, we say it's perfect, it's okay, the economics say it's okay, then we have lost the independence of querying that submission by the NBS. And it's the responsibility of the NBS to justify those figures that it has thrown out, to educate Nigerians on this is the parameter, this is how we arrive at this. But fundamentally, I think the CBN seems to align, if not absolutely, but marginally, with the position of the MBS, of Bureau of Statistics, and that is why we think there is also a progressive reduction in the interest rate, as we've mentioned earlier.
I'm sure what Bukola was talking about was is it yield curve differential now, responding to the inflation numbers as we see in other clients, because what we usually see for the purpose of general frame of reference, which you've alluded to, I think you said it smartly, whether marginally or strongly, where FOMC looks at two numbers as the NFPs or the inflation number to know which direction, whether to expand or to cut rates, to expand the economy or to hold or literally tighten it, depending on what they are trying to respond to, which is why I brought out the employment numbers and also the CPI, and look at that differential to see how they are responding, whether truly or not. But sometimes it has to take like 6-7 months consistency and sustainably for them to respond. But talk us through the experiences of how the employers and the manufacturers are responding to some of these numbers. And is it also trickling in terms of the level of supply?
I must confess to you that the joy of every business owner is to see the inflation rate going down, is to see the disposable income of the household increasing, because your capacity to sell is directly proportional to the quantum of the disposable income of the household or the individual. So if the individual's income is not progressively increasing or stagnated, then the capacity of the individual to buy is compromised. The ability of the business to sell is also compromised, especially when the cost of input, the cost of transportation, the cost of energy, the cost of logistics is also increasing. Also, when you have to deal with contradictory regulatory issues, when regulators consistently create bottlenecks for your operations, when legislative issues consistently create bottlenecks for your operations. In the last few years, we've been engaging and consistently engaging the National Assembly on this issue of consistently summoning organized businesses for one oversight functions or the other. Even when the appeal court have said the oversight functions based on Section 88 and 89 does not apply to the private sector. The appeal court has an affirmative judgment on that. But we still see a situation where the committees continue to invite one business to Abuja for one oversight function or the other. Those are disruptive activities that affect organized businesses. So when you bring all those regulatory, legislative, transportation, logistical issue to factor them into the input of the business, you realize that marginally the cost of a finished product will increase. And because the price of the finished product has increased, if you're not careful, you will overprice yourself out of the capacity of the individual or the household to buy, which has resulted in the over 1 trillion naira unsold stock that was mentioned by the manufacturers. So it is still, while we appreciate that the figures are looking better, we appreciate the fact that Forex, there's a stability that we've witnessed in Forex, but we also have to deal with those contradictions, because those are the things that are actually bogging down the organized private sector. If we need to create jobs, it's the private sector that will create the jobs. If we need to get to our $1 trillion economy that the president aspired to achieve, the private sector will play a major role in achieving that. And with due respect to everything that has been done, the support that has been given, I think those inherent contradictions still have to be dealt with for the private sector to achieve its full potential. Currently, we are breathing, but I think quite a lot still can be done to support the private sector.
Mr. Yerinde, the challenge that you have mentioned, experienced by organized private sector itself, puts a big question mark on the numbers put forward by the NBS. But we must anchor at this point, and thank you for coming on the program. Mr. Adewale Smart Oyerinde is the Director General of the Nigeria Employers Consultative Forum, NECA. Thank you, sir, for coming on the program.
Thank you for having us once again.